Welcome to DJ's True Crime and Mysteries. I'm DJ, and tonight's story, well, it's a good one. It's about the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. Y'all ready? Let's get into it. A manager unlocks the office door. Lights hum on. Computers wake up. Coffee begins brewing. Employees arrive in routine clusters. Greetings, traffic complaints, weekend stories. But one desk, well, it stayed empty. No one worried at first. She's the punctual one, probably just late. 8:15 rolls around, and her phone goes straight to voicemail. 8:30 rolls around. Her supervisor checks the schedule again. Important meetings, the kind that she would never, ever miss. 8:45. Coworkers start calling each other. Hey, have you heard from her? Nope. 9:10. Her parents' phone rings. And they expect a casual check-in. Instead, they heard this. Jennifer didn't come to work today. Silence follows because she always went to work. By afternoon, police stand inside a locked condo. Bed was made. Shower was still damp. Work clothes were missing. And her phone was gone. There was no struggle, but her car is also gone. 12 hours later, it appears parked at another complex. Obviously, someone had drove it there. And a security camera captured a person walking away. One of the clearest surveillance videos ever recorded in a missing person case, and still no one knows who that person is. So before she became a mystery, she was a person building a life. Orlando, Florida, in the early 2000s, was a city growing faster than it understood itself. Construction cranes everywhere, young professionals flooding in, adulthood beginning for thousands at once. Jennifer was exactly that kind of person. She wasn't drifting into adulthood. She was engineering in it. Jennifer's personality that everyone remembers describe Jennifer the same way even decades later. She wasn't loud. She damn sure wasn't shy. And she was socially precise. She knew when to joke and when to be serious. She always remembered birthdays. She organized dinners. She checked whether everyone got home safely. The kind of friend who didn't just show up. She maintained people. Her parents often said that she treated relationships just like an investment. Carefully managed, consistent, intentional, and she expected reliability in return. Jennifer developed independence early. By high school, she didn't talk about dreams. She talked about her plans. Finance. Numbers were predictable. You work hard, you succeed, you stabilize your life. She believed adulthood could be controlled if you behaved correctly. That belief matters later. Her college years at the University of Central Florida, she balanced two identities. The weekday Jennifer, who went to classes, always followed her strict gym routine. She structured her schedule and future-focused conversations. But the weekend Jennifer, she went to the bars with her friends. She loved dancing. Absolutely loved to dance. She was very social, but she was controlled. always the planner. She enjoyed the nightlife. Oh my God, she enjoyed the nightlife. But never did she surrender her judgment. She left early, watched drinks poured, made sure friends didn't have to walk alone. She didn't distrust people, but she did understand the risk. Her friendships was a very, very tight circle. Her college friend group stayed unusually close after graduation. Traditions formed. Always Sunday afternoon phone calls, birthday trips, and girls' nights that never, ever got canceled. Friends later told investigators something consistent. Jennifer was predictable in the safest way possible. If she didn't call, something was wrong. If she didn't show up, something happened. And they meant it, literally. By 24, she already had a finance manager position, a very stable salary. She had her own condo. And most of all, she had full independence of her life. Coworkers described her as reliable to a fault. If she was sick, she called. If she was late, she explained why. Routine wasn't habit. It was her identity. Buying the condo was proof she had crossed into adulthood. Bills, mortgage, gym membership, meal planning. But you see, the property wasn't finished. Workers were constantly present, units empty, people always coming and going. She had mentioned to her family that some of the attention from workers made her feel uncomfortable. Walking to her car, they would catcall. It was just uncomfortable for her. Not paranoia, but total awareness. And she was in a committed relationship with Rob Allen. They spoke every morning and every night. Predictable communication. Structured attachment. And when routine breaks, investigators notice. And this routine never broke until it did. As we said earlier, she loved going out, upscale bars, dancing, laughter, but always the same pattern. She always watched her drink. She always stayed with her friends. She left responsibly, and then she went home. She visited nightlife. She didn't disappear into it. In January of 2006, she vacationed in St. Croix with her boyfriend. She returned relaxed, happy, normal, called her parents, went back to work, and resumed her identity routine. And everything looked ordinary. But within 48 hours, it definitely didn't look ordinary anymore. And investigators would later agree there were no warning signs. And we begin part 2, the final days. So the week began normally, almost too normally, kind of normal, only becomes suspicious later. She had just returned from vacation in St. Croix with her boyfriend, Rob Allen. They had spent several days doing what young couples do when adulthood finally feels stable. Talking about the future instead of wondering about it. Trips, career advancement, possibly even moving in together, eventually. Nothing was unresolved. No argument before she left. No emotional tension anyone could later point to. And when she got back to Orlando, she slid directly back into her routine, which, as we said earlier, that was her identity. And it was also her anchor. On Monday, January 23rd, 2006, she went back to work at the timeshare company in Ocoee. Co-workers later said she appeared relaxed. Vacation had definitely done its job. She talked about the trip, mentioned the weather, how gorgeous and beautiful, and the sand and the ocean. All of it was. She even showed pictures. Lots and lots of pictures. After work, she returned to her condo at the Mosaic complex. Construction workers were still present around the property, a detail she had complained about before. Some had made comments towards her, and not very nice ones at that. And it bothered her enough that she mentioned it to her family and her boyfriend. Whether it was worrying her or it was just pissing her off, we're not totally sure. But either way, it was bothering her. But she did not change her habits, because people rarely change habits until after danger exists. That evening, she called Rob. Normal conversation, no urgency, and no fear in her voice. They talked about their work schedules and when they could see each other next. And before hanging up, they confirmed their usual pattern. They would talk again the next night. It was routine, and routines create timestamps. On Tuesday, January the 24th, 2006, she worked another full day. Nothing unusual happened at work. No strange behavior. No indication she planned to go anywhere but home. After work, she spoke with family. Again, normal. Her mother would later say the conversation felt so ordinary in every way. And that matters. Because in missing person investigations, the last conversations often carry the most emotional weight. And this one didn't. There was no hesitation in her voice. She didn't speak in a coded language. And she did not exhibit any distress. It was just another ordinary Tuesday. Now, her last confirmed conversation was the night she spoke to Rob again. This call lasted nearly an hour. They talked about television shows, they talked about work, and they made plans for the upcoming weekend. She also mentioned that she was tired and planned to go to bed soon because she had to be to work early. And her last known words to him were casual, the kind couples repeat thousands of times without even thinking. Good night, and we'll talk tomorrow. And nothing in her voice suggested that she believed tomorrow would never come. Approximately 10 p.m. No one ever heard from her again. The morning of January the 25th, 2006. Her day would normally begin before sunrise. She prepared clothes the night before. She set out work items. She followed the same departure window every morning. Keep in mind, her identity was her routine. Investigators later reconstructed the entire morning. She used the shower. She put on her makeup. She dried her hair. Her work outfit missing from the closet. Briefcase was gone, and her phone was taken. There were no signs of a struggle inside that condo. No broken furniture, no forced entry, and most of all, there were no blood. She left willingly, or believed that she was safe when she did. The moment everything changed, her car, a black Chevy Malibu, was not in its parking spot. At first glance, it suggested that she simply went to work. But she never arrived. And by late morning, concern escalated. By afternoon, police entered her condo. By evening, they realized something investigators dread. Her disappearance happened between the front door and the car. A distance of only 30 feet. Investigators later estimated the abduction occurred sometime between 7:30 a.m. and 8 a.m. in broad daylight. An occupied condominium complex nonetheless. Commuters leaving for work, construction workers were active, which meant one thing. Whoever encountered her either felt comfortable being seen or knew no one would question their presence. Part 3. Her car. By the end of the day on January the 25th, investigators knew something critical. Jennifer hadn't simply failed to arrive at work. She had vanished in transit between her front door and her driver's seat. That meant the crime scene was not in a room. It was a moment. Just a moment in time. And moments are fragile because they disappear fast. Her black Chevy Malibu wasn't in its assigned parking space at the Mosaic condominium complex. At first, police treated it like a delayed arrival. Maybe she'd gone somewhere else. Maybe errands before work. But you see, Jennifer never skipped out on work. And Jennifer never missed meetings. And Jennifer never turned her phone off without some sort of an explanation. And within hours, officers upgraded concern to a potential abduction. They entered her condo. Everything looked staged by routine. Her bed was made, shower was wet, and her hair tools cooling on the counter. They were actually still warm. Her work clothes were gone, and her purse and her phone was missing. And again, no blood, no struggle. She had prepared to leave and successfully exited the unit. So whatever happened, it definitely happened outside. Investigators began checking nearby complexes. It was a normal, standard, early step. And abductors often move the victim's vehicle quickly to avoid being seen returning to the scene. And roughly a mile away sat another condominium complex, and it was called Huntington on the Green. And at midday on January the 26th, a resident noticed a car parked oddly, backed into a space and slightly crooked. And it wasn't belonging to anyone at that complex. And it was Jennifer's car. Now, inside the car, first of all, the vehicle was locked. There was no shattered glass and no forced ignition damage. Inside, investigators found Jennifer's purse, Her keys were missing, and her cell phone was missing. But again, nothing was ransacked. Nothing was obviously stolen. The car didn't look abandoned and panicked. It looked placed, although crooked, and backed in, it still looked placed. That distinction changes investigative theory. A fleeing offender always abandons fast. A controlled offender parks deliberately. Surveillance cameras. Oh, the complex definitely had security cameras. But in 2006, they are not what we consider today's surveillance cameras quality. They were low resolution, limited frame rate, but operational. Best that they had at the time. So detectives pulled the footage, and then the case, well, let's just say it changed forever. A person appears walking from the direction of Jennifer's parked car. They walk calmly along the sidewalk. Not running, not looking back, definitely not hiding. It was just too casual, man. The footage captures approximately 30 seconds. The individual passes behind a fence line multiple times, blocking their face in every frame. You know, in today's society, we have facial recognition. And in 2006, even if we would have had facial recognition, the pixelated versions of the surveillance cameras back then, you weren't going to get anything. It becomes one of the most infamous coincidences in true crime investigation. Every single frame obscures identifying features. No face, no clear race identification, no clear gender confirmation, just general characteristics. Average height, possibly wearing worker clothing, light-colored shirt, dark pants. They disappear out of frame, and they are never, repeat, never seen again. Drawing immediate conclusions, detectives quickly established the person in the video had to be connected. They were driving her car minutes earlier, and no report of anyone else near the vehicle. No second person visible leaving, which left investigators with a haunting reality. The best evidence in the case showed the suspect and revealed nothing about who they were. So based on the footage, Jennifer disappears approximately 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning. The car was parked approximately noon. Distance drivers about 1 mile. Driver walks away, calm and controlled. The offender spent hours between the abduction and abandoning the car. That suggests planning, or at least temporary containment of the victim. And of course, that opens a darker possibility. She may have been alive for hours after she vanished. So here's an odd detail. The parking job, it mattered. The car was backed in, something Jennifer rarely ever did. Friends and family confirmed that she typically pulled forward into spaces, but construction workers often backed their vehicles in. And investigators took note, because sometimes behavior is more identifiable than a face. And part 4, the search and investigation. By late January 2006, Jennifer's disappearance had escalated beyond just a local concern. The combination of a missing young professional an abandoned car, and a mysterious surveillance figure drew immediate attention. Orlando police and the Orange County Sheriff's Office launched a coordinated response, canvassing the Mosaic complex, interviewing residents and construction workers, reviewing the footage from every camera within 1 mile radius. Investigators focused on the first 48 hours, very, very critical in missing person cases. The hope? To find someone who saw her, someone who remembered unusual activity. But interviews yielded few new leads. Neighbors did remember seeing her leave that morning, and construction workers arriving early, some unfamiliar people walking through the complex. But no one saw the abduction itself, and no one identified the mysterious figure on camera. So law enforcement widened the radius. Local roads checked for discarded items, abandoned buildings, wooded areas, and the canals were searched. Volunteers joined with flashlights and bloodhounds. By the third day, media coverage intensified. There were local television reports, statewide television reports, newspaper headlines, and somebody put flyers all over Orlando. Jennifer's parents, who were just devastated, began appearing on local news, pleading and begging for information and to bring their baby girl back home alive. The public was very sympathetic, and yet, despite the massive effort, no one had a confirmed sighting. Some of the early theories: number one, foul play by someone she knew, whether it was family, co-workers, or just acquaintances, supported by the fact she left no signs of a struggle in the condo and her phone and keys were missing. Number two, random abduction. Opportunistic criminal, possibly connected to construction workers or transient individuals in the area. Number three, voluntary disappearance. Considered briefly, but quickly dismissed. Friends, family, and coworkers emphasized Jennifer's structured life and strong routines. Remember, her routine is her identity. Mistaken identity. Number four, someone taking her car to commit another crime. Investigators noted this was unlikely, and no subsequent crimes linked to the vehicle. The abandoned Malibu remained a central piece of evidence. Technicians, they examined fingerprints, fiber analysis conducted, and DNA swabs taken from the interior and exterior. Every step confirmed one thing. There was no indication Jennifer had ever been in the car at Huntington on the Green. The person who drove it there was in complete control. The act was deliberate, methodical, and chillingly calm. The surveillance video, it became a haunting symbol. An obscured figure, a casual stride, and the calm of someone unafraid to be seen. Experts later described it as one of the most frustrating and rare pieces of footage in a missing person investigation. Jennifer's disappearance quickly became a local story that reached national news outlets. TV specials on missing person cases featured in newspapers and online forums, and social discussions on safety, trust, and abductions. Her life before the disappearance: disciplined, predictable, full of potential, only intensified public fascination. The question wasn't just where she was, but how someone could take her from a locked condo complex and vanish so completely. Some of the investigative challenges from day one: investigators faced obstacles. Construction sites crowded with workers, limited security cameras in 2006, conflicting witness statements, and the pressure from media and the community. Some early choices would later become controversial. Handling of canvassing and interviews, and timing of forensic collection, and how surveillance footage was shared with the public. And these early decisions would shape the investigation for years to come. And part 5, construction workers and leads. So by February 2006, investigators had focused on a group of people often overlooked in missing person cases. Those who were present at Jennifer's complex every day, the construction workers. So the Mosaic condo. Jennifer's condo was part of a larger development still under construction. Workers came early each morning. Crews moved between units. Delivery trucks arrived with supplies, and security was minimal, to say the least. People walked through common areas with little restriction. To anyone unfamiliar, this activity might seem routine, but for investigators, it was a gold mine of potential leads. Who exactly was near her unit at 7:30 a.m.? Who might have seen someone enter or exit the complex? And who had access to tools, vehicles, or keys? Police began systematic interviews. Construction crews were questioned individually and in groups. Logs of arrivals, departures, and tasks were reviewed, and background checks conducted for criminal history. Now, workers reported seeing Jennifer as usual, leaving for work, waving to neighbors, but some mentioned minor incidents, catcalling, or unwanted comments toward Jennifer. Workers noticing a car moving differently than usual. Nothing overtly criminal, nothing that immediately identified a suspect, yet investigators kept detailed notes because every observation mattered. So why were the construction workers a focus? Well, several details tied the workers to potential opportunity. Number 1, proximity. They were on the site that morning of January 25th, and they had easy access to the complex and the parking lot. Number 2, timing. Some shifts began early enough to overlap with Jennifer's disappearance window. Clothing. Number 3, the figure in the surveillance footage wore attire consistent with construction workers, light shirt and dark pants. Now, while circumstantial, these elements were enough to warrant careful scrutiny. Despite exhaustive interviews and background checks, no worker admitted unusual interaction with Jennifer that morning. Fingerprints and DNA from the car did not match anyone on the construction site, and security footage could not definitively identify the figure walking away. And investigators later admitted the abundance of workers complicated the case. Many were just passing through the same areas. Many could be excluded, but no one could be definitively tied to the car's movement. There were some additional investigative efforts. Police didn't stop at the construction crews. They expanded to local delivery drivers, maintenance personnel, residents of nearby complexes, anyone who might have interacted with the abandoned car. Leads were numerous, but the case suffered from too many possibilities and too little hard evidence. The unidentified figure in the video remained central, but the challenge was clear. No face, no vehicle identifying features, and no eyewitnesses. Jennifer's family participated in interviews with the media, appealing to construction workers or anyone nearby to come forward, releasing images of her car and her belongings, and describing her routines in hopes someone remembered something. And occasionally, tips led to dead ends. Other times, promising leads failed to provide evidence. Still, investigators documented every conversation meticulously. Investigators' conclusion on the workers. So by late spring 2006, law enforcement made cautious statements. The person responsible may have been familiar with the complex. Construction workers had opportunity, but no proof linked them directly. The figure in the video may have been someone completely unexpected, maybe a passerby, maybe a neighbor, or even someone that was working off-site. It was a reminder. Opportunity alone does not equal culpability, but it could not be ignored. So, in conclusion, by the middle of 2006, Jennifer Kesse's disappearance had become one of Orlando's most confounding mysteries. Despite hundreds of interviews, hundreds of tips, and hundreds of hours of reviewing surveillance footage, there was not one definitive lead that ever emerged. Investigators explored every possible avenue beyond the construction site. Neighbors, local residents, anyone who might have seen unusual activity. Delivery and maintenance personnel, people with access to the condo complex or her vehicle. Acquaintances, co-workers, friends, or even casual contacts. Many were ruled out, but some raised minor flags, inconsistent statements, or unexplained whereabouts, though none led to concrete evidence. Some of the theories. Targeted abduction. Someone specifically planned to take her, suggested by the car's deliberate placement and the calm, methodical figure in surveillance footage. An opportunistic crime. A chance encounter with a stranger, possibly familiar with the area, who seized a rare opportunity. Or foul play by someone that she knew. Family and close contacts were heavily vetted, but nothing pointed to them. A random act by a transient criminal or serial offender, and Florida has a large history of transient predators who act without warning. The lone mysterious figure captured walking away from Jennifer's abandoned car remains central. Calm, unhurried, and confident. Face obscured and totally unidentifiable. They walked out of sight without ever being challenged. It has become the haunting symbol of the case. Someone who exists in plain sight, yet they remain totally invisible. Jennifer's parents tirelessly kept the case alive, appearing on local and national media, coordinating searches and tip lines, working with private investigators and volunteers. Public interest generated tips, but also false leads, complicating the investigation. So, where does the current status stand? 20 years later, Jennifer Kesse has never been found. No arrest has ever been made, and her disappearance remains unsolved. The investigation is ongoing, reviewed periodically with new technology and information. And Jennifer's family continues to honor her memory, hoping that someday the case will finally be solved and they can get some closure for their baby girl. Jennifer Kesse's story is a stark reminder of life's fragility. A life built on structure and routine, a bright future suddenly erased, and an unsolved mystery that still haunts those who knew her. And sometimes, the most ordinary routines, like leaving for work or walking to your car, can intersect with the extraordinary cruelty of the unknown. And in that brief moment between her front door and her parked car, Jennifer Kesse disappeared, leaving only questions, memories, and a haunting image on security footage. I hope y'all enjoyed tonight's story. Disappearance, Jennifer Kesse. Peace out, y'all.